Welcome to the Mentor Project podcast, a place where you will learn, discover new ideas, be entertained, inspired, and even mentored. Our shows explore a wide range of subjects, including science, technology, business, society and culture, art and entertainment, and life. If you would like to learn more about the Mentor Project, please go to www.mentorproject.org. We hope you'll enjoy the show.
Hi, Marco.
Susan,
This
it's
is
happening.
I know, it's so exciting. Oh my God. This is the very first recording we're launching today. This is amazing.
We're launching multiple things at the same time, so no pressure here.
No pressure.
You know?
No.
What are we launching? We're launching something that I say we've been discussing for a long time, which is a show together, and I am so excited about it. We'll see where it goes, but I'm very optimistic.
Me too. We always have these great conversations where we bring in so many different perspectives on every topic that we
You said the
discuss.
word?
Said the word. What's the word? What's the magic word?
Perspectives.
Perspectives. So welcome to our very first episode of Perspectives. And today we're going to be introducing the Mentor Project. And so we're going to be, as you said, we're going to be launching a lot of different things, but our very first Perspective shows is highlighting the Mentor Project. This is so exciting.
And
All
the
right?
Mentor Project is at the core of Perspectives. Is at the
Exactly.
core of us meeting because we're
That's
both
right.
part of the Mentor Project. And if there is one reason why all of this is happening, and it's not just the two of us, the Mentor Project is full of incredible people. Even in our weekly meeting, always we say, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know if I belong because everybody's so amazing. But the person that make this happen is the person that we're interviewing today, and we're doing the beginning of our show.
That's great. So we can just bring her on. And this is Dr. Debbie Heiser we're going to have on today. And she is actually the co-founder and really the brains behind the entire Mentor Project. So this is going to
let's
be
make the
exciting to
magic
discuss.
happen.
Let's bring her in, Marco. Let's
And
bring her in.
her in. Here she is, a little bip.
Yay.
And here, Deborah.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
And we are so excited that you are our first guest on the show Perspectives, as well as the Mentor Project on Perspectives. So this is so exciting. And Marco was just saying how you actually are the reason how we met. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this. So you're really in the center of it all.
You make me sound like Match.com.
You are for mentors, right? For having great things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You are the Match.com of matching the older generation with the younger generation, with mentors, even lateral mentoring, which I know you're going to get into. So why don't we begin at the beginning? Debbie, why don't you tell us all about your vision for the Mentor Project?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I'd love to. It kind of is like a Match.com in a way. The vision for the Mentor Project is to bring individuals' legacies to life in many ways. We are a mentor-focused organization, and the vision was always that, to be a mentor-focused organization. And the reason is we know that a mentee is going to get something out of being mentored. But we often don't talk about the mentors. Who are they? It's like an elusive figure that's talked about when people mention mentoring. And the mentors are actually really the most exciting part of this, I think. And that's because when we reach a certain age, we have a desire to give back. And we know that mentors have a hard time finding mentees, people that they want to leave their legacy with, that they want to pass their expertise on to, people that they want to share their skills and their vision with. So the Mentor Project fulfills that for experts in a variety of fields, from science, technology, engineering, art, math, law, finance, business. All of those areas, we have mentors who come in and are eager to pair up with other mentors and pair up with mentees to share and exchange knowledge and information.
And Deborah, I want to jump right here because I want you to go even a little bit more back in time, because if there is a mentor project, is because of what you have been working on before the mentor project, which is connected with aging and giving value. I'm going to say what happened after 40, and then maybe we'll tip into why the reason why I say after 40. But yeah, tell us about what you were doing before the mentor project, which, by the way, you're still doing, so that we have a better perspective for where it comes from.
Sure. When I've been in the aging field, I'm an applied developmental psychologist, and I started out in research in the 90s. And what we were always looking at was what we don't want to face as we get older, things like depression and frailty and dementia, things that we should not be expecting to experience, but that's really all that has been thrown at us, are the things that we should not be looking forward to. And I decided to pivot. Someone asked me, so why are you studying aging? And I so eagerly and happily told them, I'm working to reduce frailty and depression. And the person was like, great, that's all we have to look forward to. And I was pretty much crushed hearing that. And then it made me think, well, what do we have to look forward to? And that was the aha moment that started me on the path of really looking at what is it that we have to look forward to developmentally. And within that, I saw that in midlife, we hit an emotional stage. Most of the time, anything to do with aging focuses only on cognitive and physical changes. And those we expect to peak when we're young and then to decline as we get older. So people then thought, well, there's nothing to look forward to, but our emotional trajectory starts just where we are when we're physical as babies, but it never declines. It just goes up, 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 all the way through our lifespan. And that's where I hooked myself onto that escalator that's always going up, because there's so much that we have to look forward to emotionally. So when I looked at that, started to really take a look at that, I said, well, what is it emotionally that we're looking at that makes us happy? And it's three things that make us feel generative. That is a term coined by psychologist Erik Erikson, and it means that we want to give back or care for others without expecting anything in return. And there are three ways we can do that. One is volunteering, one is mentoring, and one is philanthropy. And I thought, let's try mentoring. I want to take a look at that. It's free, and everyone has something they can mentor on, whether that's the best matzo ball soup you can make, or it's the best, way that you can do something in engineering. Whatever your thing is, you've got an expertise, and it's free that you can get involved in mentoring. So when I looked at that, that's where we ended up going with the Mentor Project.
Debbie, you talk a lot about from the perspective of the mentors, and I really want to hear even more about that. But there's also another perspective, and that's the mentees. So who are the mentees that you are mentoring? And can you talk a little bit about, I'm hearing that from the mentor perspective, they're gaining a lot of emotional happiness. Meaning in life, legacy stuff. What is the mentees getting out of it?
Well, the mentees are getting their first lift up in life. Just today, I was in a meeting. You two were there also. It was a Mentor Project meeting where we learned that one of our mentees got to go to an exclusive conference that is it's for people who do hacking and ethical hacking, the good stuff where they invent things. And he got to go with two of the mentors, Bob Cousins and Bill Cheswick. These two mentors have done amazing things. One patented how we use credit cards on the internet, and another was one of the fathers of the firewall. And these guys have been mentoring this mentee for more than a year. And they took him to this conference, and he got to have his world opened up. He was with other people who are like Bob and Bill, who do amazing things, but he was like a kid in a candy store. The mentee gets to have a life that they may not have ever had without having the mentor there to guide them and to lift them, to open doors. and to make the world a bigger place than it was before they met their mentor.
Yeah, and I paid attention to the three things that you said that people can do when they age to contribute to society, to feel they're still in the game. Even actually, I don't want to say still in the game. I want to say even more in the game than what they've ever been, because you have experience, you have skills that you have developed, and they are like volunteering, philanthropy, and mentoring. There's always a give into those words. You're giving either in one way or in another. You're giving without really asking nothing back, but you do get a lot back. And you talk about that quite a bit. What is the fulfillment that the mentor gets from this? So there is the mentee that get that amazing experience and learning, but there is the mentor that, wow, okay, I'm getting a lot.
Well, absolutely. It's priceless what the mentor gets. Think about yourself. When you hit midlife and your old age, there isn't anyone I've met yet who doesn't want to think that their life mattered when they lived on the earth. And when you hit midlife, you start to think, well, what have I done? You start to take stock in everything you've done. You've already done a lot of things. You may have been accumulating your knowledge and your craft and your expertise and all of that. It's like checking boxes. And then you say, I may not want to check more boxes. What else is there? And did I matter? It's really like the movie It's a Wonderful Life, when George Bailey realized that the contributions that he made to his community were actually meaningful and that it mattered to so many people, and the world would have been a different place without him. Well, a lot of us go through life and we think we take for granted everything that we do. And when we mentor, when we volunteer, when we engage in philanthropy, we're actually making our mark on the world, and we're acknowledging that. And that is why it's priceless, because it makes us feel like if there's something that's missing, we still have time to do that or to make that contribution. But it also allows us to see that everything we've done was for a reason and a purpose, and there was value in everything that we've done. And it makes us feel like, let me only engage in things that bring me value as I go forward. It's quite powerful.
Yeah, it's really like the meaning of life, right? And people start to think, so what have I really done? And this is an opportunity to really bring meaning to one's life. And I've heard a lot of the mentors, even, we've talked about this, that we all experience that. Just giving back, nurturing, whether it's the next generation, other mentors, being able to teach people all the stuff that we, in fact, have learned and experienced. There's nothing like giving it to others. Yeah.
I think of it as the Holy Grail. A little piece of us lives on in someone else. Yeah. So a piece of Bob and Bill live on in that mentee that they mentored. A piece of them is going forward in whatever he continues forward with. And that's like immortality. So when we hear about the Holy Grail and people in search of it, we have it with this by giving back. That's how we live forever.
That's until we upload our consciousness into an artificial intelligence, and that's a story for another podcast, I guess. Sorry, I'm getting carried away.
Yes.
Can you give us, we know we're there, but the audience may be wondering, you mentioned STEM and you mentioned few people, very relevant, but I can add to that there are photographers, there are astronauts, there are incredible people. Can you give us some other disciplines that the Mentor Project get involved with, and maybe even some initiative that that are coming up, or more than us, so we're just rolling with you. We're with Deb.
I'm happy to tell you more about it. We have 2 artists that we're sending to Tanzania. There's a school in Sharati, Tanzania, and there's a nonprofit organization, Reach Sharati, that funds that school and helps it to operate. It's 500 kids in a pretty remote area, and this school has never had art. So we are sending artists over who will be working with all 500 students on art projects, and 15 of the students will be chosen out of those who apply to work year round with one of our artists, Justin Thompson, who is a cartoonist, and he's going to be teaching emotion through art. And they'll be learning aspects of how you can express emotion in art throughout monthly programs after he leaves Tanzania. So while the artists are there in Tanzania, they're going to be doing a mural on one of the school walls, and supplies that will last an entire year for the school will be purchased so that they can continue art within books with paper and all of the art supplies like paint and things like that that are needed, and chalk. There will be an opportunity for students to use like sidewalk chalk, but on the side of one of the school buildings, so that can wash away, they can redo it, and they don't need to have paper supplies and other things that are hard to come by there.
And I'm excited for us to learn more about this, Marco, as well as our audience, because they're going to be our upcoming guests. They're actually one of in the near future, they're going to be guests. So we'll be hearing more about that project. Even before they go, we're going to do the before and after, right, Marco? Before they go and then the after? Technical glitch, you're muted.
No, sorry.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
okay.
realized that. We're going to go more in depth on that.
Yeah.
More disciplines that I want Deb to introduce, but it makes me think what we were chatting today during the meeting, that we're never going to run short
No.
of conversation. Each single one. And then they know other people. They know incredible people that made history of technology, history of photography, Pulitzer Prize. I mean, so we are the one in the candy store. We're like, oh, let's just pick another great conversation. So I'm very, very excited and grateful for that. So tell us maybe some more conversation.
So,
Debbie, I have a specific question, actually, if it's okay, Marco.
Yeah, of course.
I've known Debbie and the Mentor Project for several years. We did some stuff during the height of the pandemic together. We really did a lot of stuff, and she's done an amazing job during the pandemic with lots of different stuff around, not just around the country, but around the world, around the globe. So I'm curious, Marco, if I could ask Debbie, if you could do the highlights, because when you started this several years ago, you did have a vision, and then I know it has evolved, it expanded. So I'm asking you a lot in one question, but if you can give us an overview, because I think the audience would love to hear this, like where you started, what some of the highlights have been for you in terms of where the Mentor Project's gone, and then finally, what the vision is for going forward. And again, I apologize, that's 3 questions in one. But I know that you can answer those.
Thanks. I'll give it a stab. I'll take a stab at it. So with the original vision was just to bring a few people together, Bill and Bob and a couple of other people from the local area around here in the New York tri-state area, to bring but really, Bill wanted to get in his Tesla and drive to schools and teach kids, quantum mechanics by the time they were in 4th grade, things like that, before they got jaded and didn't think they could do math and science. So the original idea was just to really be very in front of kids, in person, keep it real, keep it live. And we were doing that. It was so much fun. And then the pandemic hit just 6 months later. And so I thought, oh, maybe we're done. Like, what's going to happen? And then we just immediately pivoted and started doing everything on Zoom. And I mean, boy, was that a tricky time. We didn't know about Zoom bombing until we got Zoom bombed, things like that, which if anybody in the very beginning of the pandemic was Zoom bombed, they know just how awful that is when you're working with kids. So this was one of our first issues that we had, but we pivoted. We rolled with it. We put new standards in. We started to work with schools. We started to expand. Within 6 months, we went from 10 mentors to 80. And then now
say that again, 10 to 80, 80. Yeah.
So before I started the Mentor Project, people always, I'm not joking with you, they would laugh at me and they would say, nobody wants to give back. And why would any of those high-level experts ever want to give back? They're all too busy for this. They don't have time for that. They're not going to want to do it. And I thought, well, let's just see. Then we'll just stick with the 10 of us. That's fine. We'll have fun. It'll be like a little group of, family experience, so to speak. And in fact, it was the theories that they had out that were from decades ago are really true, because people came forward and said, I want to do it. How can I get involved? Can I make a video that kids can watch about, Bitcoin or about, my area of expertise? Everyone volunteers. So we ended up we have more than 400 video recordings from people who volunteered to do that. They volunteered to do way more than just that. And, Marco and Susan, you're both mentors, and the hours that you have put in are unbelievable. None of us get paid. We're a 100% volunteer organization. And the fact that we're now at over 100 mentors and we had to put a halt on bringing new people on shows the power of why people want to give back and how they like it, and they stay on and they do stuff. I mean, you end up with a new family, you end up with a new feeling about yourself and about life. That's how I feel, and that's how some others have said they feel. And
it also had ripple effects too,
Mhm.
because what you did, if you could maybe just highlight some of the global initiatives that came actually from the connections through the Mentor Project.
Oh, for sure. I kind of went down a rabbit hole with one response, but yes, we are in several countries. We've worked with a school in India. We work all the time in Argentina. We work with Russia. We worked with a school in Russia, in Siberia, and the outran obviously in Tanzania, all across the United States. People are noticing what we're doing all over, and they're saying, how can we involve our school, or how can mentors that speak different languages or from other countries get involved? And so it's just organically happening. It's just all organic.
And it's so organic that on a certain point lately, we had to say, well, look, this is all we have. This is all the people that have something to say. And maybe it's time to re-strategize the way that we collect all this information. And that's what we've been working on, as you mentioned, the three of us and the contribution of many others. And so I want to take the opportunity here to kind of, Susan, give a preview of what the vision is for what is to come, both with Perspectives, which is our show, but also with other mentors that will have their own show at their own time, when they can, when they have a story to tell and to share and come on. So I would take this opportunity to do this, if you don't mind. I'd love for you to share the vision and how this will be a library. It's not going to be the Library of Alexandria, but it's going to be a good library that you can go and learn things without paying $1 single and learning from the best.
Yeah. And this podcast that we're launching today, and with the Mentor Project, if I can, we've discussed this, and I think we all agree that we're going to be using this podcast, both ours as well as the other mentors, for them to actually be using it to mentor. It's another way of them mentoring. It's also, they're going to use it as another vehicle for getting other messages out. There are lots of different topics, lots of different people, both in the Mentor Project as well as outside, that they're going to bring on as guests. And it's really going to be quite incredible to be able to use both the podcast and the visual and the audio to let people know not only what's going on at the Mentor Project, but what's going on in their individual field, what's going on with their mentees, what they want to mentor, and use it as a mentoring vehicle.
Oh, for sure. When you two came together and decided, which is lateral mentoring, by the way, two people with completely different areas of expertise coming together with an idea to make something happen. And when you came together and said, let's do a podcast and allow ITSPmagazine to partner up and bring the expertise that you have, Marco, of getting a podcast up and going. People think you just get in front of, a computer and you're like, Shazam, I'm here, and off is a podcast that everyone's going to listen to. That's just not how it works. We've all heard bad podcasts. And so the real exciting thing is the two of you are coming together to bring, I don't even know how many mentors you have signed up already, but I know it's a lot. And they are going to be able to reach different countries. We have one that's going to come on in Spanish language that'll serve all sorts of countries that speak Spanish, and our country here in the United States. Tons of people speak Spanish. This is going to be just wonderful. But in addition to that, a lot of people don't have video access, but they can download something. If you are in Kenya, if you're in Tanzania, if you're in another country, you may not have great Wi-Fi, so watching videos is not easy, but it's much easier to access and get to a podcast. So we're really lucky that our mentors are going to be able to reach such a wide, outreach in the world through these podcasts that you guys are setting up. And it's really such a gift, really is.
Yeah, it is. And I think we're using the word podcast quite loosely lately, because podcast nowadays is also a multimedia tool, right? So right now we are recording a podcast, which will be audio, and it's also video. And some people may attach resources to maybe a book that they wrote. They can put an article. And the Mentor Project will be exactly that container, where as long as it's the content that people can use to grow with their education, it's everybody is welcome, and everybody is welcome to come, enjoy it, share it with your other student, with your friend, tell it to your teacher, tell it to your librarian, and make that available, because it's all about your vision, and we coming with you to share knowledge. And I am so excited about this that I wish I could just do this all day long.
I think you will be pretty soon. You asked about the vision, and this falls within the vision of the future of the Mentor Project. We really did shift from being a couple of people going into schools to now we're reaching thousands of students, because we're able to do outreach that's like this through podcasts. We'll always want to meet in person, but the vision is to get into schools and into get students in to work in our innovation lab that we're going to be starting up within this next month, so that we can have students patenting, designing, and developing. They don't have to be STEM kids. It can be any kid. You'll be working alongside other mentors and mentees from different backgrounds to create and develop things that haven't been developed before. So the vision really is to bring people from around the world together, and that's both mentors and mentees, to communicate, make meaningful connections, and to make very important changes in the world that are for the better, to bring positive things to the world, and to leave a very positive mark on the world.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And Marco, you and I have talked about this, and Debbie as well. One of the things that I'm so excited about too, that this podcast I think is going to do, is it exposes kids as well as adults, mentees and mentors, to so many other areas, and to be able to collaborate on things that one never knows what's going to come from it. So that a mentee could think that they only want to get mentored in a particular topic. They hear about something else, and suddenly it's opening their minds up to other interests, as well as mentors. We've seen this happen already in the Mentor Project, where mentors are, like you talked about lateral mentoring, mentors are actually mentoring each other and getting excited about doing other things, even on here, right, Marco? Like mentors who never did podcasting before are going to come on. They're going to learn how to podcast and they're going to create a podcast. So this is just, I can go on and on. This is so exciting in so many different ways. Levels.
It is. And I'm going to add to that is, first of all, well, two perspectives. I'm going to use this word as much as I can. It's okay. So you'll hear that a lot. So one is I want to bring the technology, and Susan and Deborah, I want to bring this because I talk about that from a philosophical, sociological perspective all the time. But then I have you two that are, psychologists, and we know what the role of technology in society is nowadays. And this is the right example. Pandemic arrives, you think you're done from doing things in person, and all of a sudden it explodes, right? Because people have more free time maybe to contribute. And so the role of technology in all of this is very important. But the other one is also, I think, it's the fact that you can do it with just one little thing. Like, I think that's the problem. And we talked about that, Deborah, before. Mentoring, people think that I don't have the time to do it because if I commit myself, it's going to have to be full time and I can't do my job anymore. But really, it's taking the half an hour to give a couple of tips to someone. And again, not only is beautiful, but it's really, you can make it happen. And I would like for you to point on that. Is that just an excuse sometimes that to take that first step and say, there's too much I will do it, but maybe one day?
I think that there's a lot of apprehension. What I hear mostly is that people don't feel like they're an expert. I don't have the expertise. I'm not good enough. There has to be somebody better than me. And so then the excuse that they have is I don't have enough time. But really, most people have imposter syndrome about feeling like they're not that they aren't an expert. And I see that with all the mentors. We have people who've done unbelievable things, astronauts. We have experts who are well known in the world and they have imposter syndrome. So when they meet everybody else, they say, why am I in the room? And that is something that we all tend to feel. And that, I think, is the biggest thing that hinders people from moving forward. But the one thing I can say is that every single person has an expertise. We utilize people with expertise all the time. I don't go get my hair cut by my husband. I go to an expert. I don't go get a birthday or a wedding cake made by, my kids. I go and I will buy it from a store, from a person who's an expert in doing that. People discount the number of experts that we encounter every single day. And we only have a certain amount. You can't have like the entire world of expertise in each human being. We all hold our own, and every single person has the time and ability to give back.
Marco, how many topics for a podcast did you hear in those few sentences right there? Imposter syndrome, being an expert. There's so many things that we are going to follow up on and have a blast and discuss.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking, as Deborah was saying this, I just kept thinking about my grandma or grandpa. As a kid, you're going like, who is the best chef in the world? I'm Italian, so I'm going to throw that there, but I know you're in New York, so you're going to understand this.
Yes.
And you're like, no, nobody cooks like my mom or my grandma. And that's an expertise. That's how you transmit knowledge to the next generation. So I so love the fact that everybody's an expert, either or not. And everybody's a mentor, I think. Susan, what do you think? I mean, we just need to embrace the fact that experience comes with knowledge. And
I also know that it's not just, Debbie, I know that your vision was about bringing older people after 40 to mentor, but one of the other things that has come out in the Mentor Project is that some of the mentees actually were mentoring the mentors on certain topics. So it's not just for the over 40 crew. You don't have to have a career in it. That, especially with technology today, the mentees are teaching us, because it's a first language for them, where for some of us, it's a foreign language. There's so much. So anybody really can be a mentor in the area that they're most familiar in.
Absolutely. And you know that some of our mentees have become mentors in the hackathon.
Yeah.
They, one student ran it, and another and helped design it. And we had some mentees who had graduated out, aged out, and they became mentors for the third year's hackathon. And those who mentor when they're young, or who are mentored and they acknowledge and realize that they've been mentored, are more likely to mentor as they grow older. So it's something that it's never too early to start.
And you threw out the word hackathon a couple of times, and just for our listening audience, you will learn more about the hackathon in an upcoming episode. I'm not going to give it away now, but stay tuned, because you will learn more about the actual hackathon and who the winner was. So
you're gonna hear and see if you're watching the video, or hear if you're listening to the podcast. Looking forward to that. I think it's going to be one of our next episode, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's next to be recorded. So great.
And another thing, now I want to talk a little bit about perspectives, and I want Deborah's input on that too. So we met through the Mentor Project, and then I invited you to be on my podcast, and then we start talking and sharing passion for old school radio and media, and we always talk about that, TV and things like that, how you communicate. And we're like, yeah, I'm in LA, you're in New York, but it really feels like we're just sitting at a coffee shop having a conversation. So I feel like our conversation, and I'm going to give the heads up to people, are really going to be unstructured, like this one. So this is a very big pilot of us co-hosting. And we want to hear from you, the audience, both what kind of conversation you would like to hear from us. If you have question follow-ups, kind of like Ask the Editor, old school again, media, because we want it to be a living room, a coffee shop where we come and meet, and there is no pretentious way to be or selling anything. I just get excited for this. It's kind of like I'm going out and having a coffee with friends, even if I'm doing it thanks to technology here. That's my vision for perspectives.
I agree, Marco. I'm very excited. We've been talking about this, and I'm glad that today we're here finally doing it. And as you said, we talked about this. There's lots of different ways we're going to bring information and conversations. And I agree. I'd love to hear from the listening audience, the watching audience, however you're doing it, listening, viewing, wherever you're doing it, whether it's seeing it on TV or listening on a podcast or the radio or wherever this is, you're getting it. What did you like? Sometimes, and I know a lot of people that really do a lot of writing and publications, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes they get more fan mail quote from the people that have something disagreeable to say, and that's fine too. Disagree with us, but we'd also like to know what you are liking, what we're doing. What do you want to hear more of? What's working? Because this is a project in progress, right? We're gonna see how this goes.
Yeah, how is that? I'm gonna ask both of you that the human mind a little better than me. Why people are so much more vocal when there is something wrong, and it's so hard to give a compliment instead? Like I wonder sometimes you know that there is hundreds of people listening to your episode because you look at the analytics, but then if you look at what social media, maybe they don't share that, and that one that didn't like something will share it. So it can be a little intimidating.
Well, we could probably have a whole episode on this, but I'll throw out a couple of
Sign
thoughts.
that one too.
And then I want to hear from Debbie too, being the in terms of what she does. So it's actually in our DNA, and it's for survival, because we've learned to pay attention to threats. And so as we evolved, we had to pay attention for survival. What threatens us? And so I think that is a remnant of that, that it really gets to us emotionally when we hear something that kind of gets our backs up and wait, I don't agree with that. And that's from the old, like, I need to protect myself. We go into kind of survival mode. And so I actually make it my business to always do the opposite. It's a very conscious thing. I will always do the compliment and tell people what they're doing right and go out of my way actually to call, to send a note, to give a comment on what I like. So Debbie, do you want to add to that?
I was literally going to say exactly what you said, but I will say, I'm going to give a visual example of it. Both
Right.
Susan and I teach intro psych. So when you said what you said, I was like, that's exactly what I would have said. Imagine yourself driving down the road and you're driving happily, you're listening to the radio, everything's great, right? And it's fall, the leaves are starting to change, it's lovely outside. And then you see a car accident up ahead. What do? Do you slow down and look? Yes, you do. Did you slow down and look the whole time on the highway going, what beautiful leaves? No, you didn't. We are built, just like Susan said, to take in the negative because it's a threat. That could be me. That could be a loved one. That car accident is something that I take in because it's a threat that could be me at some point. The leaves are just pretty. They're no threat to us. So when we hear things that are positive, see things are positive, we sort of just take it in instantly, but we don't really do much with it. But when there's a threat, we do. So we're going to be more likely to respond, to make a comment, to react in a bigger way. If you see a spider, a snake rolling over, most people go, you don't go and, say, oh, okay, here's a wild animal that could harm me. That's really how I visually interpret what Susan was saying.
Love the example. Love that example with the driving and the leaves and the accident.
Yeah, and I agree. Like you make me think about that. Maybe is a sign that the world is not as bad as we picture it sometimes, because most of the time we're not in alert, we're not reacting like that. And obviously, I agree. That means that I'm going to use the metaphor of driving on the highway. If I'm going to congratulate to everyone that is drive okay,
Exactly.
or everything that is pretty, I
Exactly.
would just do that all the time. So
Great.
let's take that as a very positive sign, where the bad thing is the exception. And maybe
it is all perspective.
Oh
All
my God!
perspective.
There you go.
There you go. You win the prize, Debbie.
You get a candy right there.
Exactly. Right. Right.
I will say that in addition to that, I put out an article about ageism and, how ageism is changing, right? How this is a changing phenomenon. Put out all the positives about how stereotypes are changing and all of that. I write all the time. I got so much hate mail from that. You need to talk about the negatives. You need to point out the negative things that, over and over and over. And I never would have predicted that. But that just goes to show that people, if you're afraid of something, and a lot of people are afraid of growing older, you will respond negatively. If that's what I got from that, where people
Marco, so many topics are in my head for future shows. I'm excited. I have the list. I'm just making notes, and there's a lot that's coming out of this that I know.
Well, that's what I
want to talk about.
That's what I do every time I get a newsletter from the World Economic Forum or the Artificial Intelligence Consortium. Everything about the good things and renewable energy. I'm like, yeah, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that, because we're driven, and I know I speak for you too, Susan, by our curiosity. Yes. I don't want to corner ourselves in one specific thing, and that's why we used such a very general name, because we may end up talking with so many different mentors or other guests that maybe they're not mentors in the show, that it's because it sparked our interest. But I'll try not to do the news cycle that thrive on negative news, because that's what people buy, right? And
But you know, Marco, yes, there's a yes and, right? And that is, how we came up with perspectives, because I could actually go into, Debbie, why perhaps, right, my imagination, why especially somebody who was in the field giving you that criticism and telling you to not, why he or she, why they wanted you to not do the positives. I could actually give you some reasons that would make a lot of sense, because coming from their perspective, it may be that, people are in denial about what aging is, and we don't then get the resources. And then, so it could be, but it's got to be both. And that's what I'm hoping. It's like, it could be that they focus on the negative, and there's also room for you. It reminds me of a line from Hamilton that, yes, I've been obsessed with the show, Hamilton. The world is wide enough for all of us, right? There was that, the world is wide enough for both. And I think that that's the key, looking at it, the different perspectives. And I think that, we've talked about this. We need that more now than ever, because it seems like people are so intolerant of other people's perspectives and not open to hearing it. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but it's about just understanding it. If you were in that person's shoes, having that person's experience, you would come to the same thought or that they're at. And we're going to explore all these different perspectives.
Absolutely. Very exciting. And I hope people are getting the message of what it's going to be. But I would like to take this final few minutes for two things, and give it the mic back to Deborah. One, Deborah, if you would like, announce maybe your podcast show in short. I know you're still thinking about it, but I'm excited. And then I would love for you to make a call to action for the Mentor Project, what people can do to participate to it. So the mic is yours.
Thank you. Well, first, if you want to get in touch with the Mentor Project, there are several things that you can involve yourself in, and they're very generative. One is that you can donate, you can sponsor programs, you can sponsor things. That is being philanthropic and generative. And to do that, go to mentorproject.org. You can also check out all of the offerings that we have on LinkedIn, on all of our social media sites, on Facebook. Look for the Mentor Project. And if you have ideas, give comments back to this podcast, because we do listen to everything that people say. And if someone has an idea, we would love to be able to incorporate it. So if you'd like to be mentored, let us know. If you'd like to be a mentor, let us know. If you have a school that you'd like to get involved, let us know. Mentorproject.org or through this podcast. The podcast that I'm super excited to be doing is After 40. And it's going to be talking about everything after 40. So I don't think that most people know, but we become happiest in our lives after 40. We have a lot to look forward to after 40. And that's what this is going to be all about. Everything that we have to look forward to after 40. So you don't have to be 40. Get a sneak peek for what's in store for you after 40. And if you are after 40, there's going to be a lot there that people are going to be able to tap into as resources.
I'm excited to hear it.
I'm excited to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And as soon as you got your first episode out, I think that one of the many topics that we wanted to cover on this show is to always, if somebody has a new show or there is a new mentor, as we mentioned at the beginning, we will make an introduction. Maybe it will not be an hour conversation like this one, which I hope we're not boring anyone because we had a lot to say. But sometimes maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just to give a shout out to something new that is coming up on the Mentor Project, as we are some sort of the news and updates for the Mentor Project. Yeah. So we'll dedicate a few minutes out of every show if there is something to say and to highlight.
It's great. Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth, Marco. Absolutely. We're going to be doing the highlights and for each episode. It's great. As well as what you just said, having the guests on that are going to be launching their own podcast once they do one or a couple of episodes. So Debbie, we'll have you back on after you do a taping or two to launch your podcast, and we'll hear more about that. So this is very exciting. So, when Debbie was mentioning the Bob and Bill mentors, I kept thinking, Marco, we're going to have the Bob and Bill episode too. So we look forward to future podcasts. The next is, just to repeat, up and coming for the Mentor Project. We're going to be having the project that's going to Tanzania. We're going to be having more information about the hackathon and the winner, and really all the mentors. And I also want to add, Debbie, on the Mentor Project, on mentorproject.org website, you can find out about everything that the Mentor Project is doing, as well as the podcast will be there. The videos will eventually be there as well, so that you can link to the podcast. You can link to also, if you want to watch it on, I believe it'll be on YouTube. But, please stay tuned. There'll be some more changes on that website as well. And this has been great. Marco, I'm very excited.
I think that's clear in the tone of our voice. And if you're watching the video, it'll be in our smiles. And if you're watching the radio, just picture us smiling. Deborah is smiling, so I hope she had a good time as the first guest of our show. And everybody else, I'll say there will be notes on the podcast. There will be resources, of course, all the links to the Mentor Project. And it will always be like that. Again, we'll welcome your feedback, and if you have something to share, be sure that you can find it there. So I think that's it for now.
This is great. We look forward to giving you and bringing you a new perspective and hearing your perspective.
That's our signature. Yeah.
Ciao.
All right.
Thank you for listening. This show was brought to you by the Mentor Project. If you enjoyed this segment, there are many ways to thank us. Please consider subscribing to our podcast, making a tax-deductible donation, or becoming directly involved. Subscribe to this podcast and visit us at www.mentorproject.org to learn more.